Welcome to another edition of Responder Resilience. I'm David Dachinger. On tonight's show, we're going to be speaking with paramedic and paramedic educator Gregory Shovak, who works with Mutts Mending Mankind, a Connecticut-based service dog training organization which works primarily with veterans and first responders. We'll be talking about the benefits of service dogs and the Mutts Mending Mankind dog training program right after this. When I was trained to become a firefighter and an EMT, very little time was devoted to educating us about job-related stress, burnout, trauma, sleep disruptions, and mental health. We didn't know that there were life-saving resources, resilience strategies, and support groups that help first responders to cope with anxiety, depression, and stress. It's a huge understatement to say that first responder mental health is in crisis. Fire, police, and EMS are professions where more die by their own hands than by the hazards of the job. And research shows that up to a quarter of public safety dispatchers have symptoms of PTSD and depression. In this silent worldwide crisis, first responders are quietly suffering due to stigmas around mental health services and lack of awareness about vital resources that are available to assist them. We can help the helpers. Welcome to Responder Resilience, a panel of experts sharing their wisdom and experience from the front lines of first responder health and wellness. Tonight, our guest is Gregory Shovak. Let's bring on Greg, and I'll read his bio.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Good to see you, Greg.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So Greg is a paramedic educator who has been involved in EMS for over 20 years. Greg's a paramedic FTO for AMR Hartford and is a lab coordinator for the Capital Community College Paramedic Program. I think our department's gotten a few students from your program over the years.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And Greg founded EMS and PTSD, Learning from Combat Veterans to Understand PTSD, in November of 2013. The original program was used to educate the EMS community on how to best treat a veteran in crisis, whether as a patient in EMS care or as a coworker returning from deployment. And over the last 8 years, the program's grown and transitioned to include educating the public safety community as a whole about our own incidents of PTSD and the staggering suicide rates of EMS workers, police officers, and firefighters. PTSD awareness and suicide prevention have become Greg's passion. Greg is also actively involved with Mutts Mending Mankind, a Connecticut-based service dog training organization which works primarily with veterans and first responders. MMM pairs rescue dogs, veterans, and first responders who are living with anxiety and PTSD, and trains the dog and the handlers free of charge. Upon completing the training, the handler will have a certified service dog to assist them with daily life, and thus will never walk alone again. Greg, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get into the Mutts Mending Mankind piece, I'm kind of interested in how you got into EMS, what kind of motivated you. And I came across a story you told about being in an EMS class on September 10th, 2001. What was happening that night?
Well, to back up a few months, in July of 2001, we had a drowning at the facility where I used to work. And we unfortunately lost a young child in our pool. And as much as I had some first aid training and had been a lifeguard, felt completely helpless and useless when something that tragic was happening. So I kind of set my mind to learning more and wanting to be more educated. So that fall in September, I signed up to take an EMT class through Granby Ambulance, which is here in Connecticut, which is near where I live. And our first class for that EMT class was held on September 10th of 2001.
Wow, what timing?
Yeah, it was team taught by two instructors, one of which is a past fire chief, Wayne Bindis from the city of Hartford. And yep. Wayne was unable to be at that first class because he was actually down in Washington, D.C., poised to teach a terrorism course on the morning of 9/11 to the D.C. Fire Department. And instead, he ended up responding to the Pentagon with members of the fire department that he was supposed to be educating that morning. The EMT class ended with us watching a video entitled The History of Ems that was narrated by James O'Page, one of the founders of EMS, who started paramedicine out in California and worked with the TV show Emergency to make sure that everything was work accurate and looked appropriate. And so we watched that video as a way for the instructors to kind of let us know what we were getting into and weed out people who maybe weren't made for for EMS and getting into the first responding community. And ironically enough, that video ends with showing the 1993 World Trade Center bombing and the FDNY response to that.
Wow.
And literally less than 12 hours later, after watching that video, was unfortunately 9/11. And I kind of knew right then and there that I was going to eventually work in this industry. And I ended up leaving that resort in 2004 and went full-time into EMS through AMR Hartford and went into paramedic school at that time. And then my story gets even more weirdly ironic. So after I took my EMT class and I was riding in Granby as a volunteer, a year to the day of the child's drowning, I actually helped deliver one of the first babies in Granby's history within our ambulance. And I was doing the paperwork and I was like, why does this date sound familiar? And it was a year to the day of us losing that child in the drowning accident.
Wow.
So a lot of things were pushing me toward doing this job. And I'm happy that I followed those.
And so how many years total have you been in EMS?
I've been in EMS for 20 years and coming up on 17 as a paramedic, working in Hartford that whole time.
Incredible. Well, it sounds like it was meant to be. So
yep.
Congrats on your career. And at some point, maybe not tonight, but we should talk about, how you have stayed in that career for such a long time. But I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back and talk on that.
So let's shift gears and let's talk about Mutts Mending Mankind. How'd you get involved with that?
Back in 2015, I had a friend of mine who was a military veteran and fell upon some hard times, relationship-wise, job-wise, and he was actually renting a room for me at the time and staying here at my home. And he said to me one day, I think I want to get a dog. I think a dog would really help me. But he was too anxious to go to the initial class to meet Shelley Cody, the founder of Mutts Mending Mankind alone. And he said, would you join me at class? So I was like, sure, I'll support you and help you look at this new potential therapy for you and potential help for you. So I joined him at that class and subsequently continued to go to classes with him as he was getting his dog trained and starting to work through the program. And one day Shelley brought an extra dog with her. She says it's an extra dog and says, would you like to work this dog today? Since you're here all the time for class, you might as well help train this dog. And, not trying to, at that point, talk me into getting a dog. She told me later on that she actually recognized in me, as much as I was trying to help my friend, that I myself would probably benefit from a dog. Back in 2013, 2014, in that time frame, there really wasn't much discussion of PTSD amongst the EMS community. It's been well known in the veteran community forever, but we didn't recognize it in ourselves, and there really was no discussion about it. Mm-hmm. And she saw in me that I might benefit from having a dog. And I was working this little Jack Russell, my first dog, Petey, during class. and he was listening to me, and I didn't know him. He didn't really know me. And at one point when we were on a little bit of a break, he goes belly up and I start rubbing his belly, and she looks over and she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, she didn't tell me this beforehand. She's like, "He was highly abused and he doesn't really let a lot of people touch him, and he definitely doesn't let anybody go to his belly." She goes, "He's your dog." And I'm like, "I don't want a dog. I'm just here with my buddy Adam." And she's like, "No, you're going to take that dog." And she definitely Sarah McLaughlin'd me for weeks with sad pictures of him. I fostered to adopt, as she put it, which was her way of getting him into my house. And he's been here since. And I have, since that time, actually acquired a second dog as well, who was certified. Initially, I just wanted a friend for Petey. And then when I got Velvet, my red-nosed, red brindle pit, she was just phenomenal with the job and has been awesome. So they both serve different functions. Petey does wonders for me at home with some of the tools he's trained on, and Velvet's phenomenal in public.
Well, it is cool. It sounds like you just went through the open door when you met Petey, and the rest is history.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a steadfast believer that things happen for a reason, and you just kind of go with it.
Sure. So you touched on this a little bit, but what has having a service dog meant for you and kind of done for you in your life?
Until it was pointed out to me, I didn't really realize a lot of the social anxiety that I had, especially in crowded rooms. And some of the things that our dogs are trained to do is protect our bubble so that, we kind of keep our personal space. And they also watch our back, or our six, we say in the program. So I found that one of the major things was in a crowded situation, I can actually focus on who I'm talking to and have a conversation and not need to worry about who's behind me, who's coming up on me, because my dog Velvet especially, will just kind of look that way or slightly jerk the leash because she's always watching where I'm not. So I can turn around and realize, yes, somebody is coming behind me, but it's not anything dangerous, and I'm good with it. They also really help to distract us from what bothers us. Being in EMS, we're so used to being very stone-faced and not allowing or showing our emotions that we don't really know we're exhibiting anxiety a lot, because we're just used to shutting it off. And there was one evening where I was trying to watch Night Watch. I had a friend who worked down in New Orleans that used to work with me in Hartford, and he was on the show. And I'm trying to watch a couple episodes of Night Watch, and Petey is going nuts. He's going to the door and barking that he has to go out. I go to let him out. He doesn't go out. I go back to watching TV. He's in my lap. He's jumping around. He's licking my face. And I was so frustrated. I called Shelly at home, and I was like, "What the hell is going on with this dog?" And she's like, where are you at? Where's your head at right now? And I said, "I'm just watching TV," not even realizing that watching a work-related show was disassociating me and bringing me back to anxious situations. So she said, "Try changing the channel and call me back in a few minutes." I changed the channel, put on something else. Petey curls up in a ball in my lap, falls asleep, stops being a complete a-hole. and the night was over, and I called her up and I was like, "You're right." And that's one of the first time I learned the lesson, and it's one of the hardest lessons for folks in the program to learn, is to trust your dog. If your dog is doing something, there's a reason. They're trying to get you out of where you are. They're trying to get you away from what you're doing. They're trying to ground us or refocus us and get us out of those mental vacations that we sometimes go on that we don't even realize.
It sounds like he's totally tuned into your energy.
Absolutely. And it's not until you start to realize what they're doing that you really get the full benefit of what the dog can do for you. Luckily, through EMDR and meditation and doing Reiki, I don't have nearly the volume, if any, knock on wood, nightmares like I used to. But our dogs can also be, and my dogs were both trained on waking us up in the midst of a night terror or a nightmare. And it was when I first just had PD by himself, he would just lick my face and wake me up. And sometimes I didn't even consciously realize that I was having a nightmare. And he would curl up next to me, and if you start to match your breathing with your dog's breathing, it's a mindful, meditative type of experience, and I would be able to fall back asleep. And then once I acquired Velvet, she picked right up on it as well. She's a little bit more aggressive with her waking up. If I'm not waking up from a nightmare, she is in the center of my chest like she's doing CPR, just kind of jumping on me until I wake up, and she will stay there staring at you, licking you, and until you realize where you are and what's going on. And then they kind of tag team and both curl up on either side of me so I can fall back asleep.
Wow. So cool. And
yeah.
Do either one of them go to work with you, or where do they go with you?
When I worked per diem at a EMS service that we had a base, PD came to me every shift. Mm-hmm. And not only was he a huge help for me coming back after a crappy call, but he would also go around and make sure the rest of the crew was good too. So that was awesome. I never would want to bring either of them actually on the road with me. That would be tough. But PD always went to work with me at my per diem paramedic job, and Velvet is everywhere else with me. She goes to the college with me when I teach. She's great on testing nights. She'll go student to student and kind of be like, yeah, all right, fine, pet me, because I know you're anxious too. And she goes on all of my speaking engagements when we speak with the EMS and PTSD. And that has in turn kind of opened up the world of service animals to first responders. Because again, just like we didn't have a lot of knowledge a few years back about the dangers of our jobs and the incidence of PTSD as compared to the vets, the same thing. Like, it was sort of okay for a veteran to have a service dog, but it wasn't really a big thing within the EMS community or the first responding community. And I had no problem going out as kind of a poster child and saying, you know, yeah, I suffer from this. I deal with this. And so do you. You just don't really probably recognize it yet. And this is what my dog does for me. And it's really been beneficial.
Well, it's fantastic that you're sharing that, your story and your success, and how the dogs have helped you out there in the world, because no doubt it's helping a lot of other people.
Well, when I first started the PTSD training, I used to stand at the podium and run the slideshow, and I had a panel of veterans that would come out and present with me. And for the first few years, I felt like I was standing up saying, how you doing? I'm the moderator. These guys are messed up. They're going to tell you about what they're dealing with. And more as they would tell their stories, I would sit there and say, well, I do that. And I do that too. And it was eye-opening and finally hit and clicked that we're all in the same boat. It's trauma from different things, but it still does the same injury to your brain, and you deal with the same consequences and side effects of it.
Absolutely. So besides telling us about where the dogs have gone with you in terms of work and teaching and speaking, where are these service dogs actually allowed to go?
Service dogs are allowed to go anywhere in public and any public facilities except for kitchens of restaurants, and within a hospital setting, any sterile environments. Mm-hmm. They can be with you in the emergency room and up on a floor, but they're not allowed in surgery. But other than that, there's no ADA is pretty straightforward as far as where they're allowed and what they can do and what someone at an establishment can ask you about the dog.
So I know there's quite a variety of different dogs that Mutts Mending Mankind trains and places. Where do they actually come from? Shelley,
the founder and head trainer, when she designed and sort of built the program in 2014, initially strictly helping military, and then mostly through my interaction with her, we've expanded into the EMS side of things. She wanted to not only save the life of the veteran, but save the life of a dog as well. So all of our dogs are rescue dogs, primarily coming from the South. And she has a great working relationship with the transport companies and with the rescue organizations down South. If the dog is coming up for a veteran, there is no cost for the transportation and no cost for the dog. There's a small transportation fee from the EMS world, for the EMS and first responder world, to get the dog up here to Connecticut. But the dog comes fully vetted. All the dogs come fixed, and they're ready to be trained and paired with their human.
Incredible. And what kind of training do the dogs receive?
So we meet weekly in Granby, Connecticut. Granby Ambulance has been phenomenal and has allowed us to use their facilities for training. They have a huge grass area that we can work with all of the dogs in the nice weather, and then they allow us to use their EMS training room for our indoor trainings during the colder seasons. The trainings are every Saturday. There's 2 classes a day, one at 3 and one at 4:30. And the classes last a little bit over an hour a week, and then you're sent off with homework just to do commands and different trainings with your dog at home. And if a handler does the work and puts in the time to build that bond with their dog, 2.5, 3 months or so of classes, and you can graduate the program and have your dog certified by Shelley.
That's amazing. Greg, let's come back and continue this conversation right after this quick break.
Great, thanks.
Our mission at Responder Wellness, Inc. is to subsidize or provide free of charge safety equipment and wellness services to first responders, including police officers, firefighters, EMS personnel, and 911 operators throughout Connecticut. Resources include scholarships to train new EMTs, a responder and veteran-only AA group in Danbury, Connecticut, as well as police vests, a fire and EMS boot program, yoga classes, gym memberships, and T-shirts. The founder of Responder Wellness, Inc. co-leads a peer support group sponsored by Fairfield County Trauma Response Team. Responder Wellness, Inc. is a nonprofit 501c3. Find us on the web at responderwellness.org, on Facebook at Responder Wellness, Inc., or email us responderwellness@gmail.com. Responder Wellness, Inc., putting responders first.
We're back with Gregory Shovak, paramedic educator, talking about Mutts Mending Mankind. And you told us the story about how you got paired with PD and Velvet. Typically, how do dogs get paired with humans in this process?
So what Shelley does when someone makes an inquiry to the program and is interested in trying to get a service dog is she talks with the veteran or the first responder to find out what they're looking for in a dog. Are they super active and go hiking all the time, or are they looking more for a snuggler and a couch potato dog, and they're, someone that will take care of them at home? Once she gets that information, like I said, she works very closely with the rescues down south, and they know what she's looking for in a dog, and they'll find 2, 3, 4 different dogs of the size that the handler wants and of the demeanor that the handler is looking for, and they'll send up some pictures, and people could take a look at the pictures and see which dog they want to foster or immediately go to adoption on, and the dog will get shipped up from the south, and they're paired together as soon as the dog arrives. Like with Velvet, I knew I wanted the goofiness and the love of a pit bull, because they are phenomenal dogs despite the reputation that they are given, and they are so loving and so bonded and so just goofy that I when I was looking for a friend for PD and just, someone to entertain him was my initial thought while I was at work, long shifts and everything. Shelly sent me pictures of 2 or 3 dogs, and the picture of Velvet, I just looked in her eyes and they like dug through to your soul. And I said, that's the dog I want. I didn't know if it was male or female. I knew nothing about it other than that dog is just looking right through me. And it's so funny. To this day, we'll be out somewhere in public or we'll be at class, and I'll hear people kind of whispering, look at the way that dog looks at him. Just watch how he looks. And I'm everything to her. I'm her world. It's amazing.
That's incredible. And so what's the application process like? How long does that typically take?
It's pretty quick. That's one of the hallmarks of Shelly's organization. She didn't want people to wait. A lot of service dog organizations that are out there have either a extended waiting list or a super high cost to get a dog for veterans or first responders. And a lot of veterans, when they're back from deployment and are super in need of help, maybe having difficulty holding a job and are barely able to feed and shelter themselves, never mind pay upwards of $20,000, $25,000 that some organizations charge for a dog. But then a lot of these organizations that charge that extended amount of exceptional amount of money for a dog also require you to uproot yourself and go to their training center for like 3 months on your own dime and learn how to work with the dog. With Shelly, she wanted to provide the dogs for as little money or free as often as possible. And she understood that when someone got to the point of saying, I need help, I need a dog, I think a dog will help me, that you may not have that 2 years to wait. Unfortunately, some people may make horrible decisions and complete suicide in that time because they feel like they have no way out. So Shelly gets you together with a dog as quickly as possible. Very recently, this past Christmas, she received a call from a veteran who was on his last string and needed something and said, I think I need a dog. As luck would have it, just based on size of the apartment, another veteran had recently trialed out a dog, but it was too large for where he was living, and he gave the dog back to Shelly and got another dog. So Shelly had this dog available, and within a day or two of this veteran reaching out and calling, they were paired together.
Wow.
And they took together phenomenally. They did great. And I was talking to this veteran one evening after class. We were chatting, and he said, I can't believe this group and how quickly I got the dog. He said, and he got her on Christmas Eve. He said, if I didn't get her, I was planning on killing myself after Christmas. And wow. He got the dog on Christmas Eve, and it has completely changed his life.
That's a phenomenal success story, as well as your story. Sounds like it's a phenomenal success story. And thanks for sharing that, Greg. Are people coming from like long distance to connect up with Mutts Mending Mankind?
Yeah, it's amazing. There are people that drive 2 and 3 hours on Saturdays to come to class.
Wow.
Who have either been turned away or couldn't afford other programs, have heard great things about Mutts Mending Mankind and about Shelly, and will put in that distance to come. And some have super anxiety with traveling or being in a car that long, so they're coming with family or spouses just to be able to physically get there until they have that bond with their dog and they feel like they can make those trips by themselves. And it's great to have the family and kids join into the class too, so they can all understand how the dog works, how the training works, and the importance of it to the first responder or the veteran. Anything
else you want to add that we didn't cover?
Just to give you some cool numbers on the overall statistics, Shelly started the program in 2014. Since its inception, she has rescued over 325 dogs, out to veterans and first responders. Over 220 of those dogs became fully certified. Some people have decided to just keep as pets and not go through the service dog process and complete the service dog process, but still are getting the benefit from the dog at home. And since I started going out with PD and then Velvet to our training classes and speaking more about the benefits of service dogs to first responders, there's 52 first responders involved in the program, and over 30 of those dogs have completed certification at this time. So it's great. A lot of lives saved on both ends.
Right. It's a win-win.
Yep.
Greg, how can people get in touch with you out there on the internet?
Yep. Mutts Mending Mankind is both on Facebook, and we have a website as well. And there are information pages where you can contact Shelly directly through email and or fill out the information form that you were looking at getting a dog, and they will start the process of getting the dog to you and getting you paired up with your new friend.
Great. All right. It's a fantastic organization, and so happy to share about it. Greg, thanks for joining us and telling us about not only your dogs, but the other dogs that are out there saving people's lives. We'll take a look.
He's clawing at my leg as we wrap up the program to get his 5 minutes of fame. This is Petey, and if Velvet wasn't 65 pounds, she could be on my lap too. But thanks very much, Dave. It was nice to be with you tonight. I hope people got some great information, and maybe I'll see some of you at class in the near future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Greg. Remember, Responder Resilience, we're on every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, Responder Wellness Inc. page, YouTube, Responder Resilience, and on E360 TV. So please like, subscribe, and follow us wherever you can. Thanks for joining us. Be kind to yourself. Stay safe.